The finale of From Season 4 is finally here, and this episode not only had main character deaths, but it had the Stranger Things red sky, the bottle tree being destroyed, family reunions, a dark transformation, and the boy in white and man in yellow acknowledging each other. With all of that being said, this finale doesn't get away with being criticism-free, because as good as the first third of it was, it definitely did have some flaws towards the back end of it, but I'll touch on that a bit later. So with that, let's discuss the finale, break down the episode, and explain the ending. Here is From Season 4, Episode 10, Ending Explained. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. The Bottle Tree Plan. With Jade and Tabitha being confronted with the monsters inside of the caves as they dug up the bones, with Jade and Tabitha signaling Boyd to dig up the bottle tree so that they could escape, we saw that Jade's prediction was right, and it was directly above the cave. As the light shone into the caves, that was what enabled the protection for a short while. However, with Sophia sabotaging the rope and them being trapped down there, the destruction of the bottle tree caused a chain reaction and for the town to go into disarray. Darkness occurred during the middle of the day, which got rid of that light in the cave. An earthquake was triggered and it left Jade and Tabitha trapped down there and needing to find an alternative way to get out of there. This showed that the boy in white was right with what he said to Victor in Season 3 Episode 9 when he said how the bottle tree was important and that it shouldn't be destroyed. The tree was taken down and the town quite literally fell apart. Randall said it best when he literally said, "What the F have we done?" We actually saw a large amount of character development from Jade in this episode because he said to Tabitha that she should emerge with the bones and he was going to be the person that was going to buy her time, meaning that he was prepared to sacrifice himself so that her and her children could go home. Jade was once a more selfish character, and we even saw that up until the previous episode he wasn't prepared to go into the cave, so he almost realized that he was willing to die for a cause. It was actually quite emotional when he said to Tabitha, "If I had to spend all of my lifetimes with anyone, I'm glad it was you." With the plan failing, Jade and Tabitha being stuck there and the residents being in the forest, the monsters began to emerge because of the darkness, and that was when sheer chaos unfolded. We got arguably some of the best scenes in the entire season here. The close-up single-take shots that were whipping round in the car really added to the sense of panic, claustrophobia, and fear as every sense was in overdrive. Patty was going mental, screeches were all that we could hear, there was shouting, it was dark, and the monster was able to get right onto the window. It was an amazing scene. It feels like the bottle tree could have been the very thing that was enabling the residents to have some kind of protection, and with it essentially covering up the sacrificial place inside of the cave, with it now being exposed to the town, I feel that's only going to be a bad omen. There was a genuine lightning bolt that emerged from that specific spot, lit up the sky and caused the sky to turn red and for a storm to arise, something that didn't seem to faze the man in yellow in the slightest. Sophia said how it was getting dark because they were nearing the end, and during the end it got messy. So the destruction of the bottle tree is what I believe she wanted to happen, hence why she didn't interfere with that. With Jade and Tabitha finding a corner inside of the caves and being trapped there, the bars were stopping them from having an escape route, so they began to dig in order to get around them. It was only with Boyd receiving a signal from them that made him go back in there as he knew that they were alive, and he was the person that was able to get them out of there. When Tabitha looked at the bones, she ankooied and saw that she was holding the skull of the Ankooey girl from the Season 3 finale, showing that she was remembering and things were coming back to her. Remember though, knowledge comes at a cost, so at what cost will remembering all of that have? The bottom line is, the removal of the bottle tree did way more damage than it did good. It caused the death of Mariel by Smiley, which was a scene that made me way more emotional than what I thought it would. It allowed Sophia to just roam freely and do what she wanted in collecting the talismans. It let the monsters roam freely for a while too, and it caused several natural disasters. If the bottle tree was giving them some kind of protection, then that very protection is now gone, along with most of the talismans too. We did find out that the bones weren't actually what was keeping them safe inside of the caves, but instead it was the bottle tree. I was confused how Jade knew that though. However, with them being able to bring the bones to the surface, I do now wonder if they'll prove to be the key that they thought and wanted them to be. Fatima turned into a monster. For a while, it's been heavily theorized that Fatima was turning into a monster with the low pulse, the varicose veins, and the fact that she was connected to Smiley, and with her being able to connect to Smiley in this episode, after he literally found her and Mariel and simply said, "Hello, mother," a line that was perfect in every way. We ultimately saw that when she went into the tunnels in order to buy Boyd and the group time to get Jade and Tabitha out of there, she turned to them and said, "Remember who I was." This is because the Fatima that we now know of is dead. After she said that, she turned into a monster and screeched to Kingdom Come, showing that she was now one of them. It's almost as if she's been resisting the transformation because it was quite easy for her to recognize that she knew what she was becoming, but Fatima's transformation changes things completely. We don't know if she's a monster that's on the side of the town and she was going to fight them off, or is she actually going to become an enemy, hence why she said, "Remember who I was." Whilst I do think it's pretty cool that Fatima has become a monster, and that scene that we had with her was amazing from a visual and a feeling perspective, I do wonder why there was a ton of time wasted on the building of the golem for it to not even really be referenced since episode 6 of the show. Maybe Fatima is a goner now and we'll only see her in the monster form, so her legacy will be the golem at Colony House and it might come in handy in the future. Fatima is basically unkillable now because she's a monster, so I am intrigued to see if she does emerge from the cave. She's a hybrid of the two by the looks of it, the only of her kind, as she doesn't seem to be under the same spell as the ones that made the deal when they carried out the sacrifice. The reasoning as to why I believe Fatima has become a monster is because the town is made up of rituals, right? One of the main rituals is focused around the residents that basically handed their children over to the town for immortality and they turned into a monster. It was seen to be a bargain. And what we saw with Fatima was that very thing basically happening during the season 3 finale. She gave birth to Smiley, the town took him, and because the ritual would still stand, I wonder if that's why she fell victim to the transformation. She lost a child to the town, just like the others, so even though it's not necessarily exactly the same, it could still be seen as that. Pair it with the fact that she had some of the man in yellow's blood inside of her too, that's most likely contributed to that as well. What is Sophia's plan? After Elgin found the photo of Sophia in the penultimate episode, he approached Sophia with it and she revealed who she was. This was where she offered the same bargain to him as to what she did to Clara. However, unlike Clara, Elgin stayed true to himself and learned from what he did in season 3 and didn't turn on the people that had protected him and he'd been on the journey with. He ultimately succumbed to the touch of the man in yellow and he perished in the process. It was sad, but fair play to him for not turning his back on the town. This then kickstarted the process of Sophia's plan. She said to Clara that she was going to light the match and watch it all burn. This was where she then went around the entirety of the town and began collecting every one of the talismans that were up that she could get her hands on, which now meant that the town were exposed to the monsters being able to enter the buildings and they were no longer going to be safe, meaning that they genuinely need to hide in plain sight and under the cover of darkness, almost taking it right back to the beginning of the cycle. Now, I can only think of one reason as to why Sophia's done this. I think it's all leading up to the massacre. When you think back to the massacre that occurred when Victor was younger, we didn't see it happen, but we know that Miranda got him to hide during the dead of night. With all of the talismans being removed, the environment for a massacre is definitely now being created. There were many times where Sophia said that the end was near and that it was gonna get messy. I just can't see what else it could be. The massacre would mark the end of the cycle and it would leave just Ethan, just like what happened with Victor, so I think Sophia is basically allowing the environment to be ready for the monsters to arrive whenever they want and to kill the residents. She got a large chunk of the talismans and obviously Clara did too because she still believes that the man in yellow is actually going to help her, which he's not. The moment that the man in yellow is done with Clara, he'll probably just do to her what he did to Elgin. However, bargains and rituals are things that the town is built on and they carry weight there, so maybe that won't happen. When Sophia disposed of the talismans, we saw both her and the boy in white together. We now know that they're definitely on different sides to one another, as the boy in white said, "You're gonna lose this time," showing that there's almost a competitiveness and playfulness in the lives that are in the town and the journey that they go on. What I find quite strange is that the boy in white doesn't seem to hold half the amount of power when compared to the man in yellow. He speaks in riddles, doesn't show himself to everyone, and doesn't actually help that much. Whereas the man in yellow is able to do what he wants and just cause absolute terror. So I am interested in exploring more of that dynamic in the final season. It does just very much give off angel and devil comparisons. I do wonder if the town is almost its own entity and it employs both the side of good and evil, and the boy in white and man in yellow are its servants to basically see which side ends up prevailing most. Victor and Henry. Henry was continuing to battle with the idea of if the town that he was stuck in was a dream or not because of the hallucination that he had, and with the sky turning red, the earthquake occurring, and darkness happening in the middle of the day. They were more reasons as to why he thought that the environment he was in just couldn't be real. The hallucination version of Victor said to Henry, once you accept that it's a dream, the dream is going to provide you with everything that you need. So when he found the bullets, and with Donna also saying to him, go and see your son, he interpreted that as the dream showing him everything that he needed. He believed that he had to kill his son to forcibly disconnect from the world and be able to enter the world that he believed was real, the one where he had the very thing in life that he'd always wanted and been without, a family. However, when he pointed his weapon at Victor, who was blaming himself for his father's deterioration because he spoke to him about the man in yellow, Ethan arrived, and when Henry pointed the weapon at him, Victor stood up to his father. This was actually a great moment, and I was proud of Victor for that. We've never seen him be the figure of authority like that. Boyd did also say in this episode that they should have listened to Victor when it came to leaving the bottle tree alone, so I do wonder if the town is going to begin to listen to Victor a little bit more in the new season, and will actually begin to get some answers out of him. I personally thought Henry would die, but that didn't happen at all. Victor told him that something in the town was lying to him, so maybe he'll begin to believe that. Julie and Ethan. Honestly, I'm bitterly disappointed with Julie's storyline. The story walking had such potential and it was just wasted in this season. I feel we're gonna get more of it in the next season, but it's just a missed opportunity. She also saw the massacre in episode 4 and the man in yellow, and in the grand scheme of things, it didn't actually matter that much. With the storm occurring, the earthquake happening, and Tabitha not returning home, Ethan believed that he was going to end up in the town alone, just like what happened with Victor. Julie did her best to comfort him, but when they were sitting inside of their kitchen, we saw the doors and plates start banging and things getting thrown around again. I think I've come to the conclusion that this could be one of two things. I think this could be Julie story walking in a completely different time period and she could be trying to communicate with them. Hence why it's happened a couple of times, but there's been no consequence. I feel like it's a warning of some kind. Or if the theory around souls being trapped there is true, then I feel like it could potentially be Jim. If it wasn't the man in yellow acting as Jim in episode 2, then could Jim be giving the group some kind of warning or be trying to communicate with them in some way? I don't think it's a threat because nobody ends up getting hurt. With Julie's interaction with Ethan being quite wholesome, I feel like this might actually be the very thing that ends up driving her to trying it again. She'll feel she needs to protect her brother, save her father, and also look for answers, so she's got more of a motive now. My review of the finale. In terms of the final episode, I thought it had some great moments within it, and I thought it had some moments that just didn't make it feel like a finale at all, such as it ending quite abruptly. The first third was incredible. I thought the tension of the operation with the bottle tree and with things going wrong for Jade and Tabitha was just perfect. I really didn't know where it was going to go. I also thought the scene with Boyd and co trying to make it back was incredibly uncomfortable. The experience of watching that car scene was horrifying, and the close-up nature of it and Patty losing her mind basically made it feel like we were there. It was executed so well. I've been craving the monsters this season, and I feel like they really didn't let us down in the finale. Mariel's death hit me hard. I didn't expect it to because I'd always found her character to be a bit annoying, but it was actually so emotional. Having her standing up for Fatima, then begging Christy for a kiss goodbye, it was so powerful. When it was then paired with Christy breaking down and the piano score in the background, it was a highlight and a standout scene for me. I also thought it was pretty dark that she was the person that was going on about souls being trapped there when you die, and there she now was. If I'm being honest, I thought we deserved some answers in this episode, and I thought the fact that it was only about 45 to 50 minutes did frustrate me slightly. I wanted it to be a bit longer, and I also wanted it to conclude with something big. I know that Fatima transformed, but we'd seen it coming for a while. In Season 3, we got the man in yellow and Jim's death. Two huge moments, plus it was longer than what we got here, so I was a bit disappointed. I did also find it a bit cheap and easy to just have Sophia and Clara walking around separately with bags full of talismans and not a single person saw either of them in the process. There was no challenge for them. One moment with Sophia that I did really like though was her facial expressions when she took down Elgin. She was almost reveling in the fact that she was taking his life, and with her just telling Clara to get rid of the body, it does make me wonder if Sophia is going to use him as a vessel as she can now transform into him as she killed him. Overall, I thought it was a good finale. It had some great moments, such as tension, risk, and I loved the fact that we saw the town almost acting like an entity. It took it in a completely different direction and set up what seems to be the final season so well. There's a lot the show has to do in season 5 to wrap up the story. It has to give answers, provide clarity, and also some resolution too. I'm hopeful, but as we've seen with this show over the years, it can be incredibly inconsistent. So we'll just have to see. So, there you have it, from Season 4, Episode 10, Ending Explained.